updates, and then we'll have a member from the Leadership and Group Dynamics Lab come out and talk about group dynamics. And then we'll have you'll have an opportunity to play chess or Among Us. And yeah, for those who just came in, I'll just leave a few seconds for signing in. Okay.
Alrighty. So for our first update, officer elections are actually closing very soon. So if you want to apply to be a board member next year, please go ahead and see those guidelines and the application, and they close on February 16th at 11:59. It's really exciting. We have a lot of positions. We also have office hours open that we'll talk about later, so you can hear about the different positions. But you can feel free to talk to any of our board members and team members and hear about all of our amazing positions that we love so much. We're excited about.
We also have office hours this week, right?
It's coming up.
Oh, it's coming. Thank you.
You're good.
We also have our program coordinator applications open. They also close on Friday at 11:59 p.m. So if you want to be a first-year lay member program co-coordinator like myself and Abby, or a mentorship program co-coordinator like Cameron and Gemma, who's not here, or a community promoter like, where's Ulysses? Like Ulysses, go ahead and apply at the application before Friday at midnight. Super fun.
So yeah, we have election office hours. So we'll each be holding like a specific hour in the week, and they'll be on the Saikai Zoom. So the information is up there. So basically in the meeting, you can talk to us about how our experience was in the position, any questions you have, and you can really talk about anything else too as well. It's kind of like a bunch of office hours to join in. So yeah, you could use it as a study place too. Because we probably don't want to be sitting like the only one there the whole hour. So yeah, if you're able to make any of those or any of those positions interest you, you can join those office hours.
And even if you can't make it to the office hours, you could always send us a message or talk to us after today's meeting. It's also a possibility. We're right here, each and every one of us.
We love talking.
We love talking.
I like talking about me, so.
But getting into PwC camp leader applications, as it is aptly stated, the deadline has been extended until this Sunday, February 18th. So if you're interested in participating in the high school outreach program, in case you don't know what PwC is, we did have a helpful video last row meeting. Does everybody remember PwC's video? So we did receive new applicants after that video. You guys were, your pathos spoke to you, and you guys decided to participate, but we still need some more camp leaders. So if you're willing to participate either one day or both days, or no, I said what I said. Yeah. Okay. If you're willing to participate the Saturday, March 2nd of PwC or Sunday, March 3rd, we'd be happy to have you. We're going to have training days for camp leaders. Initially, I had planned to have only two training days because I thought it might need that much work. However, we do have some very well-equipped and prepared coordinators that are also willing to help us. So we might only have the training be one day, and then the camp days are of course 2 days, but if you can only make it for one, feel free to also apply. And if for some reason you also can't get to the application for whatever reason by this Sunday, you can also just speak to me. Just talk to me one-on-one, tell me what's going on, and see if we can coordinate to possibly just waive that application entirely. I'm willing to do that if you're willing to work with me on this. Again, I'm very conversational, so if you want to speak to me after today's meeting or any time in between, send an email. But again, the QR code's there if you're interested in filling out the application, because there are more details about the position there. So if you'd like to know more, again, scan the QR code. And then we also have some Saikai lights. Vanessa, do you want to speak a little bit about this?
So member highlights or psych highlights, very cute, fun guys, right? So fill out the interest form. You can either scan it or the link's right there. So showcase your achievements and involvement this quarter, and the form is open until February 19th.
I'm back, everyone. I'm back. So for undergraduates, that means you and me have the opportunity to submit a self-submission video describing how you fell in love with your research interest. Or if you haven't found your research passion yet, what steps are you doing to get there, right? Are you perhaps communicating with a faculty? Are you talking to grad students? Are you reading research papers? Are you going to my share circles and talking about amazing research that's currently in the field? Anyways, right? If you're interested in talking about research, psychology research specifically, or even educational psychology research, this is the form to apply. You just have to, how do I say this? Organize your video according to the guidelines that are there. It's a minimum of 5 minutes, but no over 20-minute videos. We're trying to edit these down to hopefully present at the end of this quarter. So if you're interested in talking about your research or what interests you about psychology research, feel free to submit that form there. You'll receive 1 activity point. And I'm sorry I forgot to mention earlier, but camp leaders, I'm gonna go back. 3 activity points. So again, what do activity points earn you? Well, at the end of the quarter, we do have a giveaway. It's not for that stuffed animal, but we have an even bigger stuffed animal.
Do we?
Now we do. And it's not just, again, about the prizes and about the tangible things, right? The extrinsic values, but it's also about the community and the likeness that you find here at Psychi. I feel like a lot of the times I was participating because I found that I just really loved hanging out with all of you. And it's really nice to see that new people, even the first and second years, be here for all the events that we create. And so I definitely appreciate everyone being here. So thank you for being here at today's journal meeting.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, guys, we're still having the Krispy Kreme fundraiser. It's $1 a donut. $12 for a dozen donuts. It's a deal. I think you guys should participate. You can either Zelle me or Venmo me. The information's up on the screen. Just include your name, your email, and say that it's for the fundraiser.
Is that 2 activity points?
And it's for 2 activity points, guys. Amazing, crazy. And make sure you don't mark it as a business transaction, just like a personal transaction. But yeah, and then I'll email it to you very quickly. But yeah, please participate. And now we will have our guest speaker from the Leadership and Group Dynamics Lab, Nadab. Welcome. Yay. Okay.
Hello, everyone. As Cameron said, I am Nadab. I'm Nadab Gomez. I am a 3rd-year PhD student, and I work in the Leadership and Group Dynamics Lab. So I kind of recognize some of you a little bit here in terms of like me TAing or maybe being the instructor of a class. But I'm glad to be here and talk a little bit about the research we do. I believe that was what y'all were hoping I can like share with you all. So as far as me and my background, I got my bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Texas at San Antonio. So I'm originally from Texas. And then I got my master's degree in psychological research at Texas State University. And as I mentioned, I am currently a PhD student here at UCR. So I moved from Texas over here to California to get my PhD. My previous work experience involves being an associate instructor, being a TA here at UCR, but also I served as a research area specialist at the Riverside County, which I hold currently, but it's more of like a part-time thing. And then I also was a research area specialist at UT Health Science Center. So it's a medical school, and I helped conduct research studies within the psychiatric or psychiatry department. My interests in research are team dynamics and social influence. And I will talk a little bit more about the research that we're doing and how that applies to these topics. And then just for extra stuff, my hobbies are traveling. I love playing volleyball, and I like painting and drawing. All right. I don't know if it's in the, okay, awesome. Okay. So these are the slides that I prepared. I wasn't sure what exactly you all needed as far as like me sharing the research that we do. So I will give you a broad overview of the current studies that we have going on and how this applies to group dynamics, because this is the topic for today. So Our team involves Dr. Thomas Tsai, which hopefully a lot of you have come to know. He is very popular with the undergrads. Like a lot of people like going to his lectures. He's super enthusiastic. He is the principal investigator. So we all work in his lab and he directs it. And we, as the grad students, help conduct the research that he likes to do in the direction that he would like. So I am there, Merab Gomez, but then also there's Laura Ashlock, who's another graduate student. She is also a third year, so she came in at the same time that I did. And then there's Paul McAvoy, who's a first year graduate student. So currently in our lab, there are 3 graduate students who help and assist. We are kind of mediators between talking to the RAs and getting them to do tasks that we need to get done while also informing Dr. Tsai about what's going on. So as far as our current research, we are working, let me switch this a little bit so you can see the little image. Okay, so generally speaking, our lab is called the Leadership and Group Dynamics Lab. So we focus on things that are related to leadership and also groups. Our main theory that we really focus our attention on are called the implicit theories of leadership and followership. And essentially what this involves is the idea that we make mental representations of what leaders look like, not physically, but in terms of their attributes. And we have mental representations of what followers are in our heads too. And how we construct these and how we develop these, how these impact our perceptions of other individuals are really important and can tell us a lot of information about leadership and what is effective followership. And in particular with followership, it is often overlooked in literature because everyone wants to focus on being the leader and being the one that stands out. But current research has now moved away from only focusing on leaders, but also understanding what it takes to be a follower, because that is an equally important role to have. Then we also do studies with MindTap, which is an actual mobile gaming application that Dr. Thomas Tsai owns and has, I think, patent pending. Like he developed it himself and it's easy to download in the App Store. You can use it for your own stuff if you want to achieve different goals. But ultimately, the point of this app is to help train your mindsets to get you to where you want to be. And it could be different goals that you have. You could have leadership goals, you could have confidence goals, you could have socialization goals, things like that. But ultimately, this app is designed to help shape your mindset through these different games that you can do. And the outcome essentially is to get that target, that goal that you want to do. And so we are gamifying essentially professional and personal development, which is really cool. We do studies with this app, and I think currently we are looking at how images that are uploaded to use for gaming, whether it's you, like a picture of you, or a picture of someone else, can impact the outcomes that you end up with. So maybe being more personalized might be helpful, or maybe setting it away from you and putting pictures of someone else helps you feel inspired to become more like them and gives you a different outcome. So we're trying to see if there's a difference between the kinds of pictures you upload to play games on this app. We also focus on leadership and like leadership within the modern world. And that often gets brought together with social media. So my second year project and my personal projects so far have been involved with social media and how we can maybe conceptualize social media influencers in particular as these modern day leaders, right? They have a group of followers, they guide them towards specific goals and get them to where they need to go. So oftentimes that is how we define leadership, yet we haven't really studied social media influencers as leaders. So using leadership theories, using followership theories to understand how they interact with their crowds and their followers. Then there's also the follower leader identity integration and partitioning theory, which we are trying to develop. So it's a model where we understand that you are oftentimes not only a leader, but you could also be a follower at the same time. So in this image, you see how there are a hierarchy of individuals within an organization, and you have the leader all the way at the top, and you have the lower level employees that are all the way at the bottom. But what happens with those that are in middle management, who both have to be leaders to the subordinates, but have to be direct reports to someone else who's above them? So you do not just separate the two identities, maybe you integrate the two and you can be both a leader and a follower. And so the current literature really focuses on distinguishing the two, and we are working towards finding a way to integrate them to understand that you can do both, and you could either switch back and forth and keep those identities pretty separate, where like you're like, okay, now it's my leader mode, or now it's my follower mode, or where you see these things as overlapping and you integrate them continuously, where you keep that identity like both identities at the same time. And then we have shifted a little bit over to some of more the team dynamics and group settings. So right now, a lot of our research focuses on leadership. We want to also get at the group dynamics component of our lab. And so Paul, our new graduate student, has a study about how communication within team sports can impact their cohesion. So how a coach and an assistant coach communicates with their team players and their athletes can impact how cohesive they are and how well they work together. So we are looking to also move into more of the group settings and team sports, but also teams within organizations. And in that same realm, we are beginning a study about belongingness and inclusion within teams, and how there is a push for diversity, equity, and inclusion within even universities, but also just in the workforce in general, and whether or not certain levels of diversity give you more of the belongingness and inclusion outcome that most organizations want within teams. So that is where our research is right now. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask after the meeting. I know you all have other stuff that y'all are gonna do. Let me see. But if you wanna contact us, these are our emails and this is our lab website. Usually in terms of recruiting RAs, we start kind of in the summer is when we like to recruit new RAs to get ready for the fall. So if you're interested, feel free to apply. Our lab website is there and there's a link there to get to the application for RAs. I will say that being an RA is quite a bit of a privilege, I want to say. And so a lot of students express a lot of interest, but then there's always select few spots. So it doesn't hurt to apply, but make sure that you apply to other stuff as well and keep your mind open about other labs too, because our lab in particular focuses on these research interests, but maybe you align better with other ones. So just look into other research labs if you want to be an RA, and any research experience at this level is actually going to benefit you quite a bit. So thank you. That's it.
Have a couple questions.
Oh,
you.
yes.
So
Okay.
before I start, does anyone have any questions that you had come up for Madam?
Yes.
I guess what made you personally interested in studying group dynamics?
A lot of this comes from more of a strategic point from my end. I would like to be someone that works in industry. So I want to be working in consulting. I'd like to help organizations conduct research to better their organization, which is not common. A lot of PhD students want to go the academic route. They want to become professors. I've kind of come to realize that industry is where I'd like to be. And so I've noticed that a lot of organizations are now trying to figure out, what do we do with teams and how do we study them? Because they're so complex. It's not the same as just studying one person or one employee. You have to understand how they interact within groups. And so that is kind of what led me there. And in particular, when I went to a research conference with IO Psychology, or that focuses on IO Psychology, they had NASA there, and NASA is actually doing a lot of research on teams. One of their studies was about finding ways to communicate with teams when they are up in space, which means that you will have like a 3-day delay in the time in which your message gets sent to them because they're just so far away. And I thought that that was like super interesting. So I would like to gear my research towards teams and doing things like that, because those are the kinds of qualities that industry is kind of looking for at the moment, among other things, but Teams is one of those. And so I would really like to make myself as competitive as possible and be able to work with teams in real life settings. Yeah,
Are there any other questions?
yes. So when you'll have a PhD in academia, in academic settings, everyone else has one too. So it's not that big of a deal. People don't like, they're like, okay, so what, you have a PhD? I'm also a professor who has a PhD. In industry, it's actually more rare to find anyone with a PhD because a lot of PhDs go into academia. So for one, they'll take your level of expertise a lot more seriously because you are now the subject matter expert in the area that you focused on, and they trust that you are able to do your job and your role and have the research and the data analytics training to be able to do it. And so in industry, as a PhD, you can get a lot more higher level positions because you are trained in certain skills that they are like desperate to get in their candidates. And so you might end up getting paid more, you will get a higher position, and you will just get more of the recognition for being that subject matter expert in an area where not that many people have that training. Yes. For a dissertation, it could vary. It depends on what you want to do, what matters within the context of your dissertation. Your dissertation is this big project that you conduct to defend it later and officially get your PhD. And so it can involve one study, it can involve two studies, any kind of amount, as long as it makes sense in terms of the logic, the rationale, the reasoning behind doing it. So you don't want to just do a study just to do it. You want to do it because it complements the main idea of your dissertation. So I've seen dissertations with one study, I've seen dissertations with 5. It kind of depends.
Alrighty, one last question.
Oh,
for you.
sorry. Yes.
Sorry.
Wait,
Go
were you
ahead.
gonna ask the
Wait,
question?
go ahead, go ahead.
Because I was like really in awe of like everything you're talking about. In my lab, we study development, right? Developmental psychology. What I was wondering is, given that you're going to go into industry with a PhD, I hope that brings you a lot of success. But when studying group dynamics, do you guys take into consideration like types of positionality or identity, or do you just look at the title of a role?
Right now, because we are in the works with these, it's still kind of, we're trying to understand what is the best experimental design or what is the best study design for these kinds of questions that we're trying to answer. So right now, I can't give you like a for sure, but both are equally important, right? Your role within the organization, but also the background that you bring with you when you enter a room or enter a team is equally as important. Particularly with the inclusion and belongingness one, we really want to take into consideration background and previous experiences, because that often informs how well you feel you fit into a team based on who else is in the team and how well you can identify with them. But Paul was actually talking about a research study where we think about attachment styles and how that impacts your willingness to become a leader. And I think that that's really cool, and I don't think it's been done so far. So we do think about other branches of psychology, and you'll see often in research that it's not always just only IO psychology. It could be, yes, exactly, interdisciplinary. So that study in particular would be a blend of developmental with IO psychology, which doesn't happen often. So we are also in the works, or talking about this project that's in the works as well.
So that was Paul?
Yes, Paul McAvoy. Paul is here. This picture was taken before he started, because he's a first year, so he's been here quite a short time. So, but that's Paul right there. which it's really cool because he wants to do the attachment styles with leadership. And I found this paper about worries about leadership and how some people will say, like, if there's a leadership position offered to them, they'll back out and say, like, no, that's not for me. I'm not a leader. And so I want to see how that is related to your attachment styles. The maybe thought of letting someone down is bigger than it is the thought of being successful and being admired or something like that. And that can be affected by your attachment style. I would assume, I theorize.
Interesting that you bring that up now, because we do have a lot of open positions available for the upcoming year. So it's interesting to think about our own attachment style and seeing if we see ourselves in that role.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a study with y'all. You had your hand up.
When applying for your PhD program, do you apply to go specifically into Dr. Sai's lab?
So yeah, for PhDs, it's a little bit different. With a master's program, you might apply to the program itself because it has a lot of cool things it offers. With PhDs, you're applying to the professor because you share interests with them and you're going to work with them directly. So in my statement of purpose, I mentioned in particular, I want to work with Dr. Sai because his research aligns with mine. And in PhD programs, you'll find that professors often have very different research interests. And so you have to identify the one professor that matches your research a lot better, or your interest or the direction that you want to go, because simply saying you want to go to the school is not enough. You have to find the professor that is willing to accept you, because ultimately the decision falls on the professor, whether they want you as a student or not.
Working as an RA in a lab, different from the kind of research you're doing now with the amount of electronics you have over your project?
So as a graduate student, I often oversee the undergrads, and Dr. Sai is pretty hands-off as a principal investigator. So he lets us as a grad students run the lab ourselves. So we are managing the RAs. And so when you are an RA, you might not get to pick the topics that you want to do, but you get to get the exposure of what research is like. So data cleaning, data collection, how we design studies, how we get information, do lit reviews, all of these things. And even if research isn't where you want to go, it's still important to have these analytical skills, and you can show that in your resume or CV to graduate schools and show them that you can do this, or that you've done this before, or even other jobs where you can tell them, like, I've had experience doing research and things like that. Yeah. All right.
Okay, if that was all the questions, can you get one more round of applause?
Thank you.
All the contact information for the grad students and Dr. Sai up there. We'll send out the slides if you guys want to see the link to our lab website. But yeah, I think we're gonna start moving on to our group activity. Yeah.
Was that a point of view?
Yeah, actually, go ahead.
Oh.
Do you want me to- Alrighty, we are gonna get started on our activities. So before we get started, who would prefer to play chess? This isn't like an all or nothing thing. Like, it's, you can decide. You for yourself. Okay, we have one person. Okay, we'll start with Among Us and then we'll ask again like halfway through. Wow. We haven't played multiple